Congratulations! We have reached Mahakala Cave. It's hard to say where the name came from. There are different versions, but the things that happened here are more important than the name of the cave. The following happened here. When Shakyamuni Buddha started searching for a path to liberation from illness, aging and death, living in ideal conditions, he, at the age of 29, found out that there are illnesses, that people age, and that there is death. And for him this was a complete revelation. When he became 29, he discovered that he had been living an illusion that had been created especially for him. His father, Shuddhadana, was afraid of certain predictions, about which I shall tell you later, when we reach Kapilavastu and Lumbini. He told his palace's attendants to do everything possible so that the prince saw only perfection. Even if a flower wilted in the evening, the palace attendants had to cut it at night so that the Buddha would not see it. It would be more correct to say Prince Siddhartha, as his name was then. So that he did not see anything wilting, but only beautiful and wonderful things. When he was eventually faced with the reality of the world, he was unbelievably shocked. He recalled a path that helps to release people from these problems, and he began searching for this path. First of all, he moved to Rajgir, which we have visited, and where we shall return the day after tomorrow. Rajgir is considered to be his mother's homeland. This is why he went there first of all. He looked for teachers that could help him to find this path, the path that liberates from all those problems, and then, being released from those problems, he would teach his relatives, friends, and nearest and dearest to release themselves from illness, aging, death. That was his basic motivation or idea. However, his journey here took him about 6 years, and for the last year or 1.5 years he was already practicing in these places. These places were distinguished by the fact that a lot of weirdos, to put it in a modern way, gathered here. That is, those people who had reached extreme schizophrenia through their asceticism. This form of asceticism was completely perverse. I can give you some simple examples of what kind of asceticism these people were doing. I shall not tell you the most unpleasant examples, but some lighter ones. For example, a person would make a vow such as, "I shall raise my fist to the sky and shall not put it down and unclench it until something happens to me." And he would hold it up towards the sky until his nails started growing through his palm. Can you imagine that? So his nails grew through his flesh. What sort of worldview would one have to do this? So they did some very unsavory things, such as making holes and putting hooks in their bodies. But since Buddha was an idealist, he perceived everything he saw with his eyes fully opened, accepted everything, and took part in this awful asceticism here in this cave. When he practiced, you have seen the picture, he was a skeleton covered with skin. It took him 6 years to reach this condition. There were some periods in his life when he, together with his partners in asceticism, made the following vow. "I will sit under this tree and will practice without leaving it. If God sends me water in the way of rain, I shall drink it. If not, I shall not drink at all. If I am sent food from the sky, I shall eat it. If not, I shall not eat at all." Excuse my laughing. There's nothing funny about this, but putting it mildly, this was not the golden path. However, for Buddha, it was necessary to do it, as it was the reverse side of the coin, so to speak, in that Buddha was giving up all the delight and amusements that he had enjoyed in his life. This means that if a person aspires only to delight, then during another part of his life he will aspire only to asceticism. Unfortunately, this is the reality, and being in this cave, Buddha realized that soon his time would be over, that his body was dying. He understood that he would die soon, that his good karma was coming, and that the period he needed for asceticism was over. He went to the nearest river to drink some water since he had not drunk any for some time. And when his partners in unhappy asceticism saw Buddha going to drink, they said, "You have dissented from norms and obligations." This is basically that when a person left, he became an apostate, correct? A heretic. You are a heretic, they said, probably. So Buddha came to the water. He most certainly crawled rather than walked, because, in fact, the water flow knocked him over. He would most certainly have sunk down, but his good karma brought him to the shore, and he somehow climbed to safety. A young woman was passing by this place at this precise moment. We know that her name was Sujata. She was an ordinary girl from a Vaishyu family. She was tending either to cows or goats, doesn't really matter which, when she noticed a huge skeleton on the riverbank. I've not told you this yet, but when you visit Kushigana, you will see a huge Buddha statue which is considered to portray his real size. He was very tall. The scriptures say that Chakravartin or Tathagata have the same body measurements, but that Buddha was 37 cubits tall. Think about that. 37 cubits is more than 5 meters. His tallest disciples could hardly reach his shoulders. He was very tall, so imagine this skeleton was laying on the riverbank when this woman noticed it. She was so shocked at what he had done to himself. She approached him and said, "Listen, okay, well..." She ran home and brought the meal she had at home, rice cereal with milk. She fetched a bowl of it and said, "Take at least something to eat. What are you doing to yourself?" And Buddha realized that she was making sense. Because while he was lying on the riverbank, a boat passed by on which there was a music teacher and his students. The musician was explaining to his students how they should tune their instruments. Taking a string instrument as an example, he said the following: "If a string is too loose, there will be no sound. If a string is too tight, you may tear it off. This is why you should adjust a string in such a way that you can get a beautiful sound." And when Buddha heard this, he realized that there should be a golden mean on the way to self-improvement. One must not venture into extreme asceticism, and one must not venture into extreme self-gratification. This is why the golden mean should be adhered to, so that a person can live in adequate conditions, can have the opportunity to take a shower from time to time, to avoid fungal infection and comb their hair, etc. Extremely negative ways of life will, to put it mildly, interfere with your path to self-improvement. After he had eaten the cereal, he went to the Bodhi tree, which you visited yesterday. And it took him 7 days to understand his own value. In other words, Buddha met with himself under the Bodhi tree. Those 6 years plus of practice under the Bodhi tree was, for Buddha, the way to himself, to who he was before being born in this world. Under the Bodhi tree, Buddha gained his real self. He became the one who he was before he was born. Here begins the new stage of his life, when he started giving knowledge to other people. He said to each person different things depending on their capability and what they could understand. Regarding this, it seems important to tell you about his cousin, Devadatta. He was a very eminent person in asceticism and in his intellect, but he was unbelievably ambitious and a little cruel. A little. I obviously putting this kindly. Devadatta tended towards asceticism, which, at some stage, Devadatta decided.
На определенном этапе Девадатта решил.
Okay, to put it another way, Devadatta also had big ambitions. He thought that he was not second to Buddha. He always tried to stress that he was also Aryan and that he was capable of doing a lot, that he could practice weird things perfectly, etc. So, at a certain stage, he decided to create a split amongst the disciples of Buddha. He came and said, "Why do you let yourself live in towns? Are you not ascetics? Do you not know that Vedic culture requires that ascetics live under trees? This is why you are apostates." So, to make a long story short, he started talking rubbish. But nevertheless, some of the disciples believed him, and the team broke into two parts. Some of them stayed with Buddha, and others went with Devadatta. They continued to practice asceticism, holy asceticism, as they believed. In general, Buddha had a lot of problems with Devadatta, although he should not be judged, as in Saddharma Pundarika Sutra, the Lotus Sūtra, chapter 12, it says, Buddha predicted that, in a vast number of eons, even Devadatta will reach Tathagata status. Step by step I shall tell you about Devadatta, what he did, and in which cities. For example, in Rajgir, we shall be there tomorrow, he tried to kill him by throwing a stone. He did many horrible things against Buddha. Well, friends, do you have any questions about this place, the cave, or any other thoughts, suggestions? Question. Did he spend 6 years here? Answer. No. 1.5 years. It took him 6 years to reach this place. We are going to use modern means of transportation. I shall calculate 3 hours to Rajgir, about 6 hours from Rajgir to Vaishali, that is 9 hours. About 6 hours from Vaishali to Kushignar, which makes together 15 hours. From Kushignar to Kapilavastu directly is not far, about 5 hours, although it will take longer because to and from Kushignar one must go across the border. So it takes about 20 hours by bus at a speed of 60 kilometers an hour. Along the Indian roads it may take a little more. Count how many kilometers that would be. Buddha had to make this journey to find the middle path. Of course, on the one hand, this contradicts the golden mean. Yes, it was too much. But on the other hand, if you read the Vedic scriptures, you will often read that ascetics of the past, Brahmins and warriors, tortured themselves for the sake of results, and this is something that has always happened. They almost killed themselves so that the gods would come down and say, "Okay, that's enough for you. What are your 3 wishes?" Question. What is the deep meaning of prostration? Is prostration also asceticism? Answer. Yes, I will tell you about asceticism a little later. Do you have any other questions about this place or other kinds of asceticism? Question. He was not here alone, was he? Was he here together with the other ascetics doing harsh asceticism? Answer. Yes. He had 5 close friends who, in their previous lives... Actually, I shall tell you one story from Buddha's life. In Buddha's time, there was a rule. If a person became a disciple of Buddha, he received an order number. When they were getting food, they stood in a line according to when they had become a disciple of Buddha. beginning from the first, then the second, and 525th, and 1878th, and 1960th. Do you understand? There was a deep meaning to this. In Vedic culture, the clan is esteemed very highly, isn't it? Buddha deliberately broke this rule. For example, if a Sudra had come first, he would be the first in the line to get the handout, and after him would come the king of an empire. The king would have to stand quietly and patiently until the Shudra got his meal, and then he would get his plate of modest food too. Do you understand? And when monks sat together in Jeta Wood, they started talking about what great achievements the first 5 ascetics must have made. Those 5 ascetics who mortified their flesh together with Buddha, they became his first disciples afterwards. Then, for their sake, they moved to Sarnad, and in Sarnad he made them more or less normal people. This is why they became the first disciples of Buddha, and they were highly respected. So the lamas began to ask which merits those 5 ascetics had to become the first disciples of Buddha in this life. Buddha heard this, and he came and said, "Monks, what are you talking about?" And they answered, "Which particular merits do these 5 monks have?" And the Buddha said, "I shall explain to you the immense merits they have." Many eons ago, when Buddha was a hermit, and he lived in the mountains, he was a fully realized person. There was a developed country not far from the place he lived. And the king of this country had a big kingdom and 5 sages who, one could say, were famous for being pillars of the Dharma. They commented on scripture and said important things to their king. However, when the king met this ascetic in the mountains, he realized that those 5 people around him were not fit to hold a candle to him. So he asked this ascetic, "Come to see me at least once a month and give me your wisdom. I shall give you food, and you will give me an opportunity to make good achievements." And he said, "Okay, I'll come to see you and talk to you about Dharma." And when he began talking, those 5 resident monks became envious and jealous. So, in order to ruin his good name, they poured dirt over him and sullied him with excrement. They did many bad things to portray him as a tramp, to show that there was no sense in talking to him about anything. So, once when he was covered with dirt once again, he said, "My dears, when I reach the level of Buddha, the level of realization, I shall put you first on the way of self-development." And this is why those monks became my first disciples. That was their great achievement. Thanks to Buddha's compassion, he made those 5 nasty people his 5 closest disciples. When they poured dirt over him, they created negative karma. It's not mentioned what happened to them in their next life. They went to the deepest layers of purgatory, where they were harshly cleansed. This is why it is not recommended to do anything against a holy person. If you have an opportunity to help, it is better to help. To do harm to them is one of the worst types of karma. I shall explain to you why. The holy person has karma to help other creatures, and I'll do my best to explain to you. Imagine a precious thing that may bring blessings. And now we move to the level of Manipura chakra, simple food. There is a bowl of food that can satisfy the hunger of 100 people. People who eat this food can realize some important things. Do you understand? Imagine that some dodo looks at this bowl and thinks, what wonderful food, and does something to make it spoil completely. Those 100 people who would have received blessings from this food failed because of this jerk who spoiled it. Do you understand? He interfered with the course of history by bringing this harm. And thus he bears responsibility, not only for his karma, but for the karma of those other 100 people who will be forced onto the downward path instead of receiving blessings. I analogized the holy person into a cup of food for you to understand. It was ordained for him to give them a blessing so that they could change their path of development and evolve. But since they did not get this blessing from his teacher and continued to be on the downward path, this guy had to bear their karma because he interfered due to his egoism. There's an unclear question. Answer: yes, from one side. From the other side, any person always has positive and negative karma, the same as in your stomach. Do you know how your intestinal immune system regulates your life and death? The bacteria in your stomach can kill you in a few hours, but they do not kill you because you have good karma. Do you understand? If a decrease in immunity is caused for some reason, it will ruin you and your body. This means, on the one hand, you have your karma to die, but also to live in your body healthily and bring blessings to others. Karma does not always manifest negatively. For example, a person had this positive karma to develop him in this way. However, this jerk interfered. There's an unclear question. Answer: if he goes to hell afterwards, it is his will. Darkness does not like light. Darkness cannot accept light. And there's an unclear question. Answer: not really hellish. And there's an unclear question. Answer: there is a concept that not even a hair can drop from someone's head without the will of God. It is correct for both Vaishyu and Kshatriya. However, regarding Brahman, there are different rules. From the God's point of view, that is correct. Read the Vedic literature and you will find many cases. If you do not have the time to read, I shall give you an example. There's a very good TV series called Mahabharata, where it is beautifully shown how the gods can interfere into certain things just because of their ambitions. Please see these programs. To my great regret, you will not find time enough or power to read so many different volumes just to find a small piece of information. I know you are modern people, and most of you have to work hard like slaves, or pay debts and other things. There are very few people who... You can see this program. When you come home after your wonderful work, you can watch how gods interfere into someone's karma. And there's an unclear question. Answer: there are more. Yes, yes. Somebody says that only because they have a wish to justify themselves or their inaction. And the question goes on. Answer: the choice? What can I say about this? You may come across a situation where both options are bad, right? This is not a choice. The choice comes earlier, at the time you made this problem by your own intellect. You missed the opportunity long before. You had to think about which thought forms you were creating. What are you striving after? The fact that both options you have are bad is your own creation. You built up your bad karma, and it will manifest one way or another. And the question is not clear. Answer. From one side, no. From the other side, yes. If the gods had not interfered, Rama would not have gone to the forest. They definitely interfered, so he would appear there. It's the same thing with Pandavas. Why did Pandavas appear in the forest and hide there for 13 years undetected? Only the forest can create warriors. They could hardly become warriors if they had slept only on soft feather beds. This is an absolutely necessary thing. This is how gods interfere. In some cases, if the gods are interested in a certain scenario developing, they will interfere, so that a person or deity would not move away from their prescribed obligations. But, I repeat, the rules of karma for those who are on the way of ascetics and self-development are very different than those for people who are on the path of Vaishu or warriors, to my great regret. The rules of karma are really very complex, and the more you study them, the more astounding things you will find. This is a fact. Okay, friends, do you have any other questions? There's an unclear question. Answer. It's difficult to say. I am not a Buddha in this life. This is why I cannot comment on which processes he went through. The scriptures do not say anything about it. I don't know why. You say it is written, but I've not seen such literature where his last motivation was described. But most certainly, as experience shows, many practitioners follow their intuition. Intuition is what was before he was born. Do you understand? It is his jivatma. Many lives ago, Buddha, he was Buddha in many lives, but it's not common to talk about this fact. But in chapter 16, if I'm not mistaken, and there's a question, which 16th chapter? Answer. Of course, the Lotus Sūtra. It's called the Sadama Pundarika Sutra. This is a very important scripture, and it's treated with the utmost respect in the East. If you can read it, it would be very good. But I know there is a small chance of that happening. Even if your intellect decides, I will read this sutra, I'm smiling because you will discover that your intellect has no importance. It means that your decision about this sutra is of no consequence. Nevertheless, back to Buddha. In the 16th chapter, there is a very interesting story. Either the 16th or 21st chapter. Unfortunately, I can't remember exactly. When Buddha revealed the essence of the Lotus Sūtra, by the way, it's necessary to mention in parentheses that, most curiously, in the book which is called Sadama Pundarika Sutra, there is no body of the lotus. Although this does not really mean anything to you, excuse my smiling. But the meaning of what I'm saying is, when Buddha revealed the sutra's meaning, all his disciples were gobsmacked. Just imagine that. People who had been Buddha's disciples for 40 years, who had followed him, who had done asceticism and who were colossal authorities in their own countries. It's not widely known that Buddha's disciples stayed with him only until the moment of their enlightenment. As soon as it happened, a disciple came up to him and said, "Buddha, have I reached enlightenment?" And Buddha said, "Yes, you have." And what happened then? Suitcase, train station, home. Excuse me, of course, Buddha did not say it like that, but the meaning was the same. "Okay, dear, you have reached enlightenment. Collect your things and go to your home country," excluding 2 cases when he said the opposite, not to go back home. Since the countries in these cases where his disciples came from were so unruly and conservative, so radically and dogmatically conservative, that if they came and tried to tell the truth to the inhabitants of these countries, they would be killed. Buddha did not recommend returning home to 2 of his disciples. I do not remember about the first one, but the second said, "No, I still have to go and try to tell them the truth." And the Buddha said, "Do you understand that if you go there and try to say the truth, they will beat you?" And he said, "Yes, Buddha, I realize that they will beat me." And the Buddha said, "Do you understand that if you continue talking after being beaten, you will be killed?" And he replied, "I understand, but there is no other way. They are my clan, and I want to help them." So he went to his country and was murdered. I do not remember what happened to the first one. Most certainly Buddha persuaded him not to go home. But apart from these 2 cases, he always suggested his disciples share their development with their own people, to repay the people who brought them up and spent resources on them. Such a rotation of his disciples was absolutely necessary to avoid spreading egoism around Buddha's Sangha, which was like living in a bubble. And there's an unclear question. Answer, yes. He told them the Lotus Sūtra, and those disciples that had been greatly respected in their countries and who had thousands of their own followers suddenly found out that they knew nothing before this. And they said, "Buddha, wow, we shall protect this sutra by all means. We have found the essence." And the Buddha said, "There is no need to protect it, as there are many others who will do that." And they answered, "How come? It's not possible." And he said, "Yes, it's true." And then Buddha asked his disciples and bodhisattvas who appreciated this sutra and who were protecting it to come from 10 sides of the world. About 10 millions and probably billions of souls appeared, those of wise men, sages with their grey hair, and they came to Buddha and began to pay homage to him, as Buddha was their teacher. Everyone was shocked. And if I'm not mistaken, it was Manjushri that said, "Buddha, this is incredible. We could hardly have imagined this. It's as if old men came to pay homage to a 16-year-old boy. And this boy says, 'Oh, my disciples,' like he started patting them on the head or something." Sorry for my comparison, I said that. Manjushri, of course, said that differently. And those grey-haired disciples bowed to his feet, saying, "O teacher, give us some exhortation." Manjushri said, "This is impossible to believe. No one will believe us." However, Buddha said to them, "You need to understand that you know me as Buddha in this life, but what I do now, I do in each life of mine. This is why all of those who you saw, they are my disciples from my previous lives. They follow me from one life to another in different worlds, and they continue to move forward my Dharma, my teaching. You have never met them. This is why you are so surprised. But there are people who lived their lives according to the Saddharma Pundarika Sutra, and they got wonderful results. So I recommend to you this sutra. You may read it. But what is more difficult is to understand what is written there. The sutra consists of 27 chapters, and it took me 3 years to read the text out loud and record it edit it and to listen to it afterwards, because it is not always available to you so that you may listen to it. It took me a few years. The first recording was created when we were in the Alps, 9 chapters. Then, when I came back to Moscow and started to edit it, I decided to record it once again. I strongly recommend you to record this sutra on a dictaphone and edit it. If you manage to do it within 4 years, you will listen to it for the rest of your life, and this is a real blessing. Moreover, you will come across incredible obstacles when trying to finish it. If you finally manage to do it, consider that you have super karma, because the obstacles will be serious. There's an unclear question. Answer. There is a section on Buddhism on aum.ru website. You may find the Lotus Sūtra there. There's another unclear question. Answer. Yes, in Russian. It is called the Sutra about the lotus flower of the wonderful Dharma. In Sanskrit it is called Sadama Pundarika Sutra. I can tell you the meaning in a few words, to summarize 27 chapters and give you the meaning. However, it is practically impossible as there are many aphorisms which, for example, in the Lotus Sutra there are many chapters which became a part of the epos in China. There are some metaphors in China about how a father treats his children and brings them up with love. These stories are taken from the Sadama Pundarika Sutra. Children can be under outside influence. Let me give you a modern version. There are some media which put into your mind some wrong ideas like enjoy everything, take everything you can from life. But what kind of adults will these children become? Consumers and egoists. They are programmed to destroy themselves. If you do not have children, you will hardly understand this now. What's bad if a child is an egoist, right? There's nothing bad in it, right? But Christian people say, God forbid that you will have an egoist child. You will understand that the egoist child lives on the energy of their family. It's the same as a drug addict. He just takes the family's energy and pours it out into nowhere. Do you understand? This is why egoism is an illness. If a person gets sick with this disease, it's necessary to give him a lot of power for him to recover. So this sutra says that if there are some evil people that come and poison the children's minds, they created a mixture that poisoned the children. And the children went mad, some more, some less. And when the father came, he saw that his children really had gone mad and that they hardly recognized him. What is he supposed to do? He cannot drive them out of the house with a stick. He realized that the children had reached such a degree of madness that they had started destroying the house, making it into a rubbish tip. He said, "Listen to me." But they had made a fire and the house had started burning and was about to fall apart. Then the father said, "Listen, leave the house." But they did not trust him, and so he had to try and reason with them to get them out of the house. So the essence of the Sadama Pundarika Sutra, did you hear that there is a nirvana? I'm sure you did, didn't you? And you most certainly know that many people are striving to reach it. Most of the monks you have seen under the Bodhi tree, they are striving for it. You understand that? Is that clear? Question. Are enlightenment and nirvana the same thing? Answer. No. Enlightenment is an instant recognition of the darkness of your mind. You were in the dark, and you suddenly realize that you did something wrong. This is enlightenment. You can get many enlightenments on your path, even every day. For example, there was a man who used to love drinking beer. He came to his friend with his beer, and his friend told him Are you stupid? Do you not understand that you are turning into a woman? Really? Yes. Beer has hop extract, which is a female hormone. This is why those men who drink beer get big stomachs and breasts and backsides. But the most important thing is that such a man becomes spineless and weak. This is why he can be easily manipulated by others. He signs papers without thinking and gets credit. This is clear. He becomes a product of the society. So the man who told him about the harmful effects of beer enlightened him. Do you see? That is, he shone a light into the darkness of his mind, and on the way to self-development there can be many such enlightenments. But nirvana is something else. It is absolutely... Do you know how a miner works? Well, they go deep down into the earth on an elevator, then they crawl somewhere for several hours. This is the reality. They really work like this. Afterwards, they start to dig out the coal. It's really hellish work. A miner has an opportunity to go to a sanatorium for a holiday once a year. He gets rest there, eats tasty food, enjoys the sun, sea, seagulls, things like that. This is an allegory here. The miner lives in the world, and the holiday hotel is like nirvana. Therefore, if a man suffers from the desires in the world of samsara, nirvana is like an ideal sanatorium that everyone is striving to get to have a rest from their burdens and deprivation. Buddha says in chapter 16 of the Lotus Sūtra, "Friends, nirvana is fine, but the time you have there is limited. Any nirvana is over sooner or later, and you will have to come down." I shall rephrase, but the essence is, if your parents put their energy into you for about 20 years, but then you go to nirvana, you will be fine. But how will they be? They gave you their life energy, and they were not working on their own self-development, right? You will become an egoist, will sit in nirvana, but other people will be suffering down there. It's not fair, is it? This is why they leave nirvana, in order to help those that help them. Do you understand? There is an opinion that you cannot see nirvana before you pay all your debts. It's a huge topic, but this is the main essence. Nirvana is also for those who are new to the path, but those people who have already been to nirvana realize that it is a nice sanatorium, but not for long. The same problems will still be waiting for you at home because you haven't solved them yet. Therefore, essence is serving. Serving to people, serving to those to whom you may bring good. It is senseless to serve an egoist. It never brings you anything. You need to serve those people who are able to develop. Do you understand? Let's return to what I tried to tell you before. We are short of time. You are short of time. Even if you live 50 to 60, even 100 years, from the yoga point of view, it is a very short period of time. How you live for these years will determine how you will reincarnate. If you want to reincarnate down, you may live in the way you wish, and we will reincarnate there. If you do not want this, you will appreciate every minute of your life. You will treat your time rationally. And this is just how it is. Question: why is there no essence of meaning in the Lotus Sutra? Answer: this is true. If you read the Lotus Sutra, it is a description of how Buddha gave the sutra. It's a description of the process of how he spoke, but the quintessence is above the words. If you know well the Devadattas, and you know the texts of Mahayana and Vajrayana, then you will understand the difference between what Buddha said to beginners and what he said to the advanced bodhisattvas. Do you understand? In case you don't know all this, it will be just a strange composition of letters. And there's an unclear question. Answer. Yes, that's not a problem. If you have your karma, you will not hear this information in vain. For example, you heard during the seminar about the Lotus Sūtra. You have not heard this in vain, right? You had the karma to hear this. Therefore, if you read, try to understand and analyze it, perhaps something from your inner world will come out, something you knew in your previous lives. There's an unclear question. Answer. No, it's not possible. Probably because there are some very cruel people. If a man stands on other people, he is very dark. If you meet such a person, you must know that there is a concept. Now, I won't go into the details and name personalities, but religious fanaticism exists. When we go to Lumbini, you will see a very good example there. There is an ancient sculpture of how Buddha was born, how he took his first steps, how his mother and servants helped him. If I'm not mistaken, it was 600 years ago that this place was conquered by people of another religion. They could not destroy this sculpture, and therefore they knocked it over and started to pull it around with horses until the faces on the image were scraped off. Only after this could they calm down. And this is why this sculpture serves as a symbol of religious fanaticism. In answer to your question, there are some people that react with cruelty and evil to everything they see. And sometimes it is not good to show something brilliant to someone who will spit upon it. Do you understand? Let's take another example with rice, for instance. If someone gets mad and spits upon everything he does not understand, he will spit upon your cup of rice that he might need to eat in the future to get clarity of the mind. However, if he will spit on it, he will create such karma that will not allow him to eat from this source anymore. He will create negative karma. He is a religious fanatic in this life, and he will always be a religious fanatic. Perhaps Buddha had some other reasons why you shouldn't do that, but I repeat, I am confident to say to you about the Lotus Sūtra, and I recommend it to everyone, not because I disrespect Buddha's opinion not to give it to everyone. No, what I think about is the fact that if a person has good karma, he will read it. If not, he will not read it. I know many examples of when I say something to people again and again, but it's quite useless. They just do not read it. And I have understood that this is not my role. I do my duty, but there are other forces that control whether this person is ready or not. Do you understand? It really is true that gods help yogis to live and develop. The more I live, the more certain I become. I cannot imagine how we could live without the gods supporting us. Question. What is the final goal? What is all this for? Answer. Yes, the Bodhisattva's path. This is the path that Buddha follows himself. Buddhas, Tathagatas, this is the path of Bodhisattva. When he, regardless of his level of development, can communicate with any person on their level of understanding, he can come to any world in order to enlighten and release from darkness. Manjushri said, if you drop a sesame seed on any place on this planet, you are 100% guaranteed to hit the place where Buddha gave his life for somebody. This is not just giving knowledge and bringing someone to enlightenment, but really giving his life for someone else. If you read Jatakas, you may come across how easily Buddha gave away his skin. Him being a wild animal with beautiful skin, with no problem. Come and take my life and enjoy my skin. He gave it away so easily, and there are many examples. There is a wonderful story about the Elephant King and a beautiful country where the elephants lived, unusual elephants. They were incredibly advanced and could fly. And their leader had 2 female elephants who helped him in his life. One was younger than the other, and the younger one became jealous towards the older one on 2 occasions. Once, the leader scratched his back on a tree, and one wife got covered with flowers from that tree, and the other got covered with leaves. And this was the beginning of the jealousy. The next time, he picked a flower, or he was given a flower, and he gave it to the elder wife, and the younger one became jealous again. And finally, the younger elephant wife went to the ascetics and brought them some gifts, some roots or something. And she made a vow to be born as a human and to take vengeance on the king elephant. She died in the practice of asceticism, but was born a princess and got married to a very powerful and influential king. And she remembered that she was born for vengeance on the king elephant. And she really got her vengeance on him. She sent hunters. Do you remember I told you about Devadatta, his brother? So, in that life, Devadatta was this hunter that killed the elephant, one of Buddha's reincarnations. However, Buddha, being an elephant, took him by the collar and asked him, "Listen, dear one, why have you murdered me? Why have you shot me? I did not do anything bad to you. Why have you come to our faraway country?" And he replied, "You know, this is not my fault. I was given an order to bring your tusks. The queen saw your tusks in her dream and asked me to saw them off you and bring them to her." And he replied, "Who is this queen? Tell me about her." So he told him who she was, and he said, "I understand who she is. Believe me, she misled you. There is a cave over there about which she knows. There are many tusks from our forefathers that are kept there, some even more beautiful than mine. And if she needed tusks, she could go there and get them. But she needs me to die. Therefore, let's quickly saw my tusks off and bring them to her." The hunter failed to saw the tusks, and the elephant helped him to saw them from the other side. Finally, the tusks came off, and he asked the hunter, "How much time did it take for you to get here?" "It took me 7 years." And he replied, "Listen to this mantra. When you say it out loud, you will move at high speed. You will bring these tusks to this idiotic woman in 7 days for her to enjoy." He did not use this word, idiotic. I added this, but this is the Buddha's state. So what is the essence of this? Why did the hunter visit the elephant? Why did he have such a wife that decided to kill him in her future life? What do you think? Because Buddha realizes that his negative karma was revealed through these people, and he can quietly sacrifice his life and his comfort so those thick people get experience. Do you understand? There's an unclear question. Answer. Of course, now they are in debt to the Buddha. Now understand, this hunter and his former wife in their future lives have to participate in this scenario, but as an elephant. Do you understand? It's difficult to believe. You may think that all events are preordained on this planet, and this is true to some extent. If you are involved in some karmic events, You, from one side, have a choice how to behave, but there is also a certain part outside your control. Question. Can karma be changed? Answer. You can change it, of course. I gave you an example at the very beginning that any karma revealed can be more or less smoothed over, like the immune system controls bacteria that can kill you. In the same way, your positive karma may smooth over the negative, and that can bring you to purgatory. Do you understand? That is a certain balance of positive and negative. The more negative you do, the more negative will come to you. It's all interconnected. There's an unclear question. Answer. Behave always in the way you want others to behave towards you. You may help a drunken man at his request. If he has no brain, sometimes you can help a drunk by doing something he does not want, right? If you see a sick man in front of you, for example, a madman, and you realize that he will do something bad, show him his place. Treat others in the way you want to be treated. There are two possibilities. Either it is your previous life and you are paying your debts, or it is your future and you lose nothing. You can't lose either way. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Why I'm talking about the past? Question. If a person has got such a lesson, why do I need to interfere if it is his karma? Answer. Logically, yes. Everyone will understand, depending on his or her level of development. Do yoga, develop yourself, and you will get sensitivity on the energetic level. You will always understand when you need to interfere and when you don't. Not with your brain, but on the level of intuition, sensitivity, and energy. Question. Does it mean you need to trust your intuition and internal voice in these moments? Answer. Not always. Consider your intuition, the forefathers' advice, and what people get who behave in similar ways in similar situations. There is a concept, clear thinking. Do you understand? Therefore, if you base your opinion on, "Oh, my heart says so," and run to do what the heart says, normally such people always lose. There's an unclear question. Answer. I'll give you an example. It's not only a karma in your legs. You may communicate with someone who has bad karma, and all your asanas will disappear somewhere. This can happen. Therefore, there is no problem. You have in your body only what you need. Be happy. It could be worse. Do you understand? There is karma. Work with it further. Develop yourself. Of course, I'm telling you some idealistic things. I hope that you may realize some things in this life for you and for the world. Therefore, I'm telling you things which you cannot read in books, but which you need to develop for yourself. There's an unclear question. Answer. They have the right, but how can they explain that pain can return to you without any reason? You had some physical disease, but then you communicated with somebody, it went somewhere, and you were cured. How can you explain this from the physiological point of view?